Okay, our speaker today is Cara Bell, Cara D. Bell. She is a career development coach and a trainer. The topic of her presentation today is what messages do your career headlines send? And this is something that is a tiny piece of LinkedIn protocol that I think is so important, and we don't think about it. The messages of your career headlines. And I'm so glad that she has chosen this as her topic because she knows where she speaks, and it's going to be very important information for you. Uh, so, her introduction. Back in the 1900s, as her Zoomer son likes to say, Kara started writing resumes as a side gig while working as a peer advisor at her Washington, D.C. College Career Center. In 2011, a divorce introduced her to the art of extreme job searching. Newly relocated to Austin, she needed a children in the midst of a national recession after 15 years as a stay-at-home mom. With the help of local nonprofits, Austin Job Seekers Network, which is now PurposeWorks, and Launchpad Job Club, she found meaningful work in finance and education before leaping full-time into self-employment. As a nationally certified coach, and LinkedIn expert. She has coached over 1,000 job seekers from diverse backgrounds. Her mission is to teach as many as possible to manage their own careers, leading to more work choices and less worry. Please give a very warm welcome to Cara Bell.
Hello, thank you, Kathy. I'm so excited to be back here again. As you mentioned, I have I found the wonderful Austin Job Clubs, including Launchpad, way back when I really needed it. It really does take a village. And I'm glad you're all here because this is not work to be done by yourself under any stretch of the imagination. I am going to share my screen. I have a tool that I absolutely love to use for training, and it's called Menti. It's a training tool, and if you would look at, here we go, uh, you can use your computer, your cell phone, whatever works for you to, there's no sign up required, no app to download, no email to give. It's completely anonymous. And what it allows me to do is get real-time feedback from the room. I love it for introverts and extroverts because you can see it on the screen and it gives everybody a little bit of time to answer. You can go to menti.com, enter the code. You can use the QR code, like I said, cell phone, laptop, mobile device, whatever you got. And at the top of every slide, once I move off this particular slide, then you will see this at the top of the screen. So if you get lost, you can always go to menti.com and enter the code. It will always be at the top of the screen. And I'm starting to see some people signed in. I can tell how many are on there. I'll give you another little bit more time to get logged on. And it's a really wonderful device for you to see the responses of your peers as well. Okay, I will move on. And while I'm doing that, just remember, look at the top and you can go to menti.com on your mobile device browser and enter that code. As you heard, I've been a resume writer for over 30 years. I've been doing it as a side business, and nothing has changed as far as this picture is concerned. My son painted this. I have it hanging in my house when he was a kid. I love it so much. You got to keep your sense of humor. Well, I guess you don't have to. I don't know how people survive this world without a sense of humor. I love this picture, and I think it perfectly describes what it's like when you're in the job search asking people for advice. And by the way, this includes educated people. Like, this includes recruiters. When I say educated, I mean job search specialists. So yeah, there's your friend, there's your neighbor, those people, but it includes recruiters. It includes people like me who are career coaches professionally. You can get lots of different advice. You all probably have done it, and then you make changes to your resume. The problem is there is absolutely no one size fits all approach. And you talk to a recruiter in one industry or a staffing agency recruiter versus an internal recruiter at Apple, they're going to all have different things to say. They don't always realize their advice is industry specific. So my mission is to educate you all to use us as guides. But your job is to really know your industry and manage your career going forward so that you aren't caught by surprise and you know how to do this. So if you feel lost, you are not alone. We are not really trained well. I've worked in university systems, volunteered. I've trained the trainers and contracts at workforce centers, and the advice is all over the place. And if you go to Google or ChatGPT, you'll find that too. So you are not alone. And this is for those of us who survived. You know, we talked about me getting divorced after 50 years, 15 years stay-at-home mom in the midst of the Great Recession. That was challenging. This job market, we talk about in national coaching meetings, may be even more challenging than that. It's for certain people in certain situations, and it's really difficult. And what's even worse about it is there isn't this awareness for everyone that this is a really rough job market, you know, the way it was in the Great Recession. So if you're feeling challenged by all of this, you are not making it up. Okay, this is where you get to share some input with me. I love to collect bad job search advice. So let me hear some of what you've heard. It's completely anonymous. That has not been helpful for you specifically, and what has not worked. And you can just type in words, phrases. And keep applying. Yep, keep at it. And again, if you've lost your spot, you can go to menti.com, that code at the top, and input that 8-digit code. You just need one yes. Take any job. I thought, yep, take any job, network, customize your resume. My parents have been incredibly supportive, but when they tell me at the age of 50 that I'll just walk into a place and find a nice boss who will give me a chance, I struggle. Don't ask for input. Yeah. So we're getting mixed advice, network, and then don't ask for input. I love that. Search like it's 1999. Yeah. I mean, it's all over the place. It's not what you know. That's interesting. I don't know how my software engineers think about that when they're getting tested in interviews. AI will write your resume. Oh, AI is writing so many resumes, and that's a big part of the problem. We'll talk about that today. I've got people that walk up to me and when AI, was first being widely used, AI wrote me a beautiful cover letter, and it's like, it may be really well written. It was 5 paragraphs with lots of jargon. One of the things that's happening with AI is if we weren't reading before, we're reading a lot less, and it's putting a lot of noise in the system. I hope that we have time today, and I'll show you some strategic ways to use AI. All right, these are great. Thank you. Thanks for participating. I hold on to these. What job titles are you targeting? I saw some people drop them in the chat. That's super helpful. Let's hear some phrases of job titles. And if you don't know, just put I don't know. That's fine too. Anything? That's fair. I'll take anything, you know. I felt that way for sure, and I went around back in the middle of the recession, and people wanted to help me because I was a newly single mom with 3 kids, and they would ask me, "What do you want?" And I would say some equivalent of "I've done anything," but it usually started with something like, "Well, I've done this, and I've done this, and I've done this, and I've done this, and I've done this," and I would keep going because I've done a lot of things. Uh, my friend says I'm non-linear like my hair, and it's true. I've done a lot of different things. Uh, Unfortunately, that didn't help people help me. And today's headline strategies are really going to be about giving people the information that they need so they can directly help you. A generous employer. You know, if I'd be a very wealthy person if I had $1 for everybody who just says, "I want to work for a nice person." Like, it doesn't matter. Technical writer leads to content development. Business analyst. Okay, let's go to the next. Now, sometimes people don't think about this as much. What are the industries you're targeting? That's weird. So IT, medical, these are really broad categories. Pick the best ones that fit. I think you can enter more than one. Now, some of you may not have an industry target. Industry targets are really important. So if you haven't thought about it, that's part of what we're going to do today is how you think about these things. And then what style of contributing is supported by your career history? So some people are individual contributors who work alone. Some people are collaborative. Some people manage their individual contributors, but they might collaborate with a lot of people. When I worked in finance, we had the CFAs who basically were in their room. I imagine a lot like coders, where they were just poring over business profit and loss statements and spreadsheets all day long by themselves in their rooms. And this has been an issue in recent years too, because as I see those people more senior in their career, in that 45 to 50 plus in the tech industry, they may be laid off right after they get a manager title, but prior to that, they were an individual contributor. And the individual contributor roles can be more plentiful. We saw a lot of those middle manager roles. So sometimes it's what your career history supports, and you may have to go back to what your career history supports, what you did prior to your last role, if the job market isn't supporting something like the manager position that you had. So this is something that I've been seeing a lot in Austin, not just now, but over the last several years. Okay, so most people are here individual contributors and working collaboratively with teams. What types of organizations? This is a real important one. I work with clients who've been in startups for the last 10 years, and prior to that, they worked for a global tech company. And it can be really challenging if your recent 10 years of history is startup, if you want to get back into a global company, because it's always about who your competition is. If your competition has recent and relevant global industry experience, your 10 years of startup may make it challenging for you to go back in. So this is something important to consider if you haven't done this already. And I can download and give people copies of these slides. Shannon can let me know how to do that later, but these are things that I really encourage you to look at your recent career history and see what you can lean on so that you are a competitive candidate. This is just for fun. I don't know why that little technical writer stayed down there, but glitch in the software. Name some famous companies in the Austin area. Betty, for sure. Apple and Dell. Yep, big state government city. VRBO. IBM, Samsung, Meta, Tesla, Charles Schwab. We've got lots of them. AMD. No foodies put in Whole Foods. So one of the reasons I put this slide up, these companies are household names, right? Amazon, of course. If they appear as a logo in your LinkedIn, it's going to get attention, right? Especially if your target is to work in another similar company, because these are household names. Now, if you work for a similar company that maybe is not as big, a competitor, or isn't the household name, then it really helps in your headline to add some context around, because we look at these companies and we know them, but there are a lot out there that are really great companies that may need some context to help us if they aren't household names. Thank you. Okay. And I'd like to know what the status of your job search is. Pick the best one. I hear people in all different stages. Yeah, lots of us in COVID and other times we've taken breaks. I had a daughter who was in a serious accident and became paralyzed in the middle of COVID. And I still have the daughter. She's doing very well. But it was I had to take a career break and move up to Rhode Island and stay with her while she was in rehab, and it's been a journey ever since. She's doing incredible now and has moved back to the Austin area. They said she wouldn't walk again, and she's walking, not like the rest of us would walk, but so I know a lot of us are dealing with either aging parents or kids who are struggling, teenagers or young adults who are struggling. I know many job seekers, they might not be here today, who are really busy in a survival job. And I define survival job as just any job that isn't your career target job. So sometimes we call it underemployment, but there are people who probably aren't here today because they are working in another job. So lots going on for people. And I'm seeing a few not making it past screening interviews. That happens a lot. And the good news I'm here to tell you is there's a lot that we can do to help you. In fact, you'll see me jump up and down a lot, and we have 2 volunteers today I'll introduce in a second. But when I see most job seekers' LinkedIn and resumes, I get really happy because they are they can be fixed. There's so many things on them, and you're going to see some techniques today that we can change, that can give you much better chances in the job search. Okay, I age myself by sharing this reference. Believe it or not, there are some people in the job search today who do not know who I Love Lucy and Ricky Ricardo is, but Lucy did something. If you ever watch the episodes, the banter between the two of them was that Lucy wanted to be in show business and her husband was in show business, and she was always finding all different ways to go around her husband and sneak into his show and be the star. And he would catch her and she would start what they called splaining. And I hear this so much from job seekers who are splaining. So they go into interviews and instead of talking about the things that they're good at, they get caught up in wordy explanations for detours, why their last job wasn't a fit, how they left, all the different things that we end up explaining to people, why they were out of work for so long. And you will see hiring managers just glaze over. And part of what we do in headlines is anticipate those things and create strategies for them so that you are not explaining. So if you ever hear yourself making a long explanation, that think of Lucy, because that is a real detriment in the job search. By figuring out a strategy head on in the headlines, you will eliminate that explaining. And whenever I do this work, if I could get paid in confidence, I would be so happy. But what happens is job seeker confidence goes up tremendously, because anytime we're just backtracking and explaining or worried about the last thing that we did that maybe the hiring manager wouldn't be impressed with, it really is a confidence killer. So today we'll talk about some things that we can do. Really great headlines solve problems in all phases of the job search. And this is really true. I told you my story about networking and just listing a million things that I could do, which doesn't help anybody help me. But also, if there's a problem on the resumes, there's problems in the interviews, and they can often be traced back to what overall career story are you telling in your sweeping headlines. I think of it like reality TV. We've got 20 years, we've got 30 years of our career, and we remember things like they were yesterday. But the hiring manager, the recruiter who's with us for 15 minutes cannot put all that into context, and they're not worried about all the things that we're worried about. So it's really important to filter your headlines to what matters to where you're going and leave out anything that doesn't. So the other thing about headlines is they work. And it doesn't matter what the technology is, applicant tracking systems, AI, yes, the keywords are going to change. But ultimately, today, and when my dad had his business in a Rolodex in the 1980s, hiring is still a decision made by humans. And a consistent story that starts with your headlines and is carried and supported by your whole career will win the day, regardless of the technology. So let's dive a little deeper into it. What makes headlines strong? And I have this as a checklist we will use as we're evaluating the other job seeker profiles. But here's one of them: a clear, focused job title. When I had you answer those questions at the beginning about the size of the company you're working for and the industry, that is really what matters. You are in a sea of an ocean of tons of people. You cannot stand out if your title is a sales leader. And we'll go more into that. Your career path makes sense and it supports the target. Your timeline. Everybody's looking at chronology. It's got to be easy to scan with few, if any, date overlaps. What I often see, and we'll see it today on LinkedIn, is there's a page of short-term roles, and that page of short-term experiences kicks down a long tenure that at a company that goes to the second page, so nobody sees it. And that long tenure might have been 2 years ago. So we look at that. And then career gaps, transitions, detours, we explain those. Volunteer roles should be clearly identified. This is especially important for people who work in large companies. If they're filling in a gap and you're volunteering, that's important. If you're contracting, when I got hired inside a university, they wanted to see that I had been self-employed. I actually had to provide Schedule Cs. I didn't have a registered business. I was just operating as a solopreneur. So they're going to ask for evidence. And we talk about bias, all the things that everybody's concerned about: ageism, long-term unemployment, and other things. So just to summarize, that's my youngest son, who is now 6'2" and just turned 20. But this is the challenge, right? Most people, sales leader is all we can tell. That doesn't help your network help you. If you start to name name things. Where are you working? Are you remote? Most of us are going to be hybrid now and based out of Boston. Um, know these words, and we're going to use them in headlines, because if somebody says to me, I want to be an executive assistant, well, I've known executive assistants that have worked in Fortune 500 companies. I know people who are answering phones at the front desk, and I know executive assistants who basically serve as chief operation officer, though they don't hold that title, for a family run business, and does everything for the right hand to the CEO. We need to know. Do you work in finance, high compliance industries? Then I can start thinking about all the people I know in those industries. Let me give you an example of an explained gap. This was a client that I worked with a few years ago, got laid off at Dell in the middle of COVID, and wasn't getting anything. And single dad, 3 teenage children, all trying to get through high school during COVID. And he didn't intend to take time off, but nobody was hiring. His resume wasn't working. And but he never explained the gap. So, and he did some volunteer work, but notice it clearly says volunteer. And also, he doesn't stop being the thing that he was an expert in because he volunteered. So ideally, you want to volunteer using the skill sets that you have if you're going to volunteer strategically. And he went from not getting anything to within a month had his first interview and was hired and is now up for promotion at that company. And it was funny because when the hiring manager hired him, he said, I didn't worry about your gap because it made sense to me. And I can't tell you how many hiring managers I have had say that to clients, or just recruiters tell me, the gap's got to make sense. It does, because hiring is one of the scariest things that you can do if there are people in the room who've hired. And if they're in threat mode, and when people are anticipating risk, they're fearful. And if you don't explain clearly and succinctly, they're going to assume something else happened that may be more negative. And this is a picture of me. When I get a hold of profiles, that's not really me, but this is how I see profiles. Profiles, resumes, all of your experience is like puzzle pieces. And what we're going to do today is look at the puzzle pieces of 2 wonderful volunteers and see how we can build them back together in a way that does all of the things we just talked about. So let's dive into that. And I have so much fun doing this. I look at resumes, I look at LinkedIn profiles, and I am immediately start thinking about how to build them. Okay, before we do that, we're going to look at one person's profile now, but I want to get an idea of what the title consultant means to you. Just if you see the title consultant, what does it mean? And if you are lost and not on the page again, you can go to Menti, there you go, and type the code in at the top that you're an entrepreneur, not an employee, a sounding board. It's pointless, it can mean anything. You're an expert of some kind in a subject, that you're doing contract work, someone being used for a short period of time to provide insight, variety of work. Notice all the different answers we're getting. Contractor. Okay. And I am so grateful to independent self-employed. Okay, awesome. I'm so grateful to our volunteers today for letting us play with their profiles and being good sports about it. And first volunteer I'm going to introduce is Steve. Steve or Steven, he says. Are you there, Steven? I think I saw him earlier. He may be muted.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, thank you so much for participating today. I asked Shannon for volunteers, and it makes me so happy to have real people that you all know and look at their profiles, because I can talk at you, but that doesn't really show you the practical application of this. So thank you for volunteering, Steve.
You're welcome.
So you can see that he is a software engineer and consultant. I did that exercise just to give Steve and everybody else an idea of why titles like consultant can be difficult and challenging on a profile, because everybody has an idea of what different consulting is. And the employer bias toward this is, oh, maybe you want to be a 1099, or, it's not really a title that exists so much inside the types of corporations that Steve would work for. So we are going to come up with something better. All right. And then I would like you to describe the characteristics of a servant leader. I see this a lot on resumes and LinkedIn profiles. Tell me what you all think. Okay, someone willing to help? I am going to assume religious and particularly Christian. And why that's important is because there's data. I attended, it's been a few years now, but the data is still matters. At a national conference, it was one of the most challenging sessions I ever went to, but it was a PhD talking about the research about how recruiters process resumes and all the biases there are. And there is a strong bias against religious people in general. Doesn't matter what religion it is. They found it replicates across the board. So if you are leading with something that can potentially be read as religious, especially in our divided culture, it may be hurting your chances. And I work with people who want jobs, so I'm looking at things that, what can I do on the profile to give people the best chance of success? But in addition, it's another word that doesn't tell hiring managers. It's a word that is, I call them, there's fluffy adjectives and adverbs, and I'm kind of on a mission to eliminate them and for a while we did this team player and all these different things on resume. My 11th grade English teacher said, show, don't tell. So I want to prove with your career that you're a servant leader rather than telling people that you are. And it doesn't mean anything to companies or the robots who are searching for specific terms. And now I'm going to introduce Tina. Thank you so much, Tina, for volunteering for us today. Are you here, Tina?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning.
Thanks for
And thanks for doing this. I appreciate.
Thank you for letting us pick on you. That is the only time I'm going to ask for feedback on these titles, but I wanted to give you an idea of what happens, right? So there's a lot of words on here. We're going to start with Steve's profile today. Depending on the amount of time we have, I want to show you some of my thinking around Tina's profile, and both of them are going to meet with me afterwards as a thank you to volunteering, and we'll update their profile together. And so if we don't get to Tina's full profile today, then you can check in with her next week and she should have it. You'll be able to see the differences. Okay. Now, there's lots of different ways that we send messages and headlines. This is called a contact card in LinkedIn. So this is the thing that when anybody connects with you, if they look at nothing else, they're going to look at this. It's sending a message. You can see Tina has, she does what a lot of people have done. It was against LinkedIn's guidelines to add all of these things into your name field. Additionally, people who do add these things into their name field are missing some really good search engine optimization, because if somebody's looking for a PMP, they're going to find it in the headline. They're not going to find it in your name field. So I really want people to pay attention to where they put these. And it can also make your name get lost. Names are some of the most important branding that we have. If people can't remember your name, they can't hire you. And I see this all the time when people are reaching out to me. Their emails are different names than is on their LinkedIn profile, than is on their resume. So I really challenge you to be consistent here, and those kinds of certifications or degrees that are important to your industry, I like to put those in the headlines because then the robots can see them and your name gets to take center stage. Both Tina and Steve are strong LinkedIn users with a lot of professional connections. That 500 is the magic number. So that's something that we look for, particularly in the Austin area for people who work in tech, as both of them do. And a picture sends 1,000 words. So I do see people put a lot of words up here. Again, no search engine optimization there. And you could potentially miss it here if it's only in the header or not there. Before we move on to Steve's before and after, I'm just running experiments as to what I like to see as background headers. And I gave you 3 options here. I don't know why Tesla keeps appearing. Elon Musk has gotten into everything. He hacked my profile, my presentation. So you can go to the Menti and put a dot next to your favorite LinkedIn background header. So I think you just touch the screen and let me see what you like as a header. That actually is a picture. You could see it on my computer screen when I share it. But that is my favorite hiking place when I go back home to Rhode Island.
Yeah, on my screen, it shows Tesla in the middle, but it also shows developer. It's hard to see what's on the bottom left a little bit too. That's just an FYI, Kara.
See it too.
I think it's how someone posted their answers earlier, rather than put it into the field in Menti, they posted it to your slide somehow. They did it in the meeting instead of in the Menti chat.
I've seen that before, but I will investigate. But that's what it's from. Their answers that people gave previously. So I'm curious to see what the votes are. These up here, a lot of career coaches were doing these branded corporate headlines. One of the things that I am seeing is LinkedIn is a social network. So anything that you can do, whether it's in the headline, I'm seeing people do it sometimes, that shows you as a human and gives people a talking point. So this last picture of a favorite hiking spot, that's a talking point. I've had people share their photography from visits, to different countries. And there are things that you can do, and you can just do a standard background. All are valid. I get confused when there's a lot of words. So I tend to prefer something that maybe is more personal or just generally plain, because again, the words are really important in the headline and have that search engine optimization. Okay, I am going to stop sharing this and hopefully I can still do that. Are you still seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So let's pull up. I have Steve's. And I'm going to pull up my checklist here. Now, I know some of you may be on small screens, so I'm going to make this larger. And hopefully, is that helping?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, can you see my little note too?
Yes.
I do not know why this Tesla's hanging out here. We're just going to roll with it. All right. So I'm going to show you Steve's before, and we're going to look through and see what we think about whether or not he has a clear focused job target. The career path makes sense and supports the target. The timeline is easy to scan with view of any date overlaps. And career gaps, transitions are explained. And if we can address and anticipate common biases. Now, mind you, I talked to both Steve and Tina ahead of time. And I love talking to them because they are both really great fits for the jobs that they're targeting, except that it is not clear on their profiles for the jobs that they're targeting. So that is one of the things here. We talked about consultant not being a possibility. You have 200, I think it's 200, I get confused, around 220 characters in this headline. this is the thing that human beings are going to see first. It's also very important to the robots. So when recruiters are looking for you, people are searching on LinkedIn, those words that you type into that 220 character headline matter. And so Steve's missing some opportunity here to really take advantage of other keywords he can be using in that headline, both for the robots, but also to let the human visitors, anybody who connects with him today, to be able to see what pond he swims in, so they can go, oh, I've got a neighbor who works at that type of company. Let me ask him about Steve, right? This is what we want to do. We want to help people. So if I scroll down, now I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this today. Steve's like, I don't use social networks, LinkedIn a lot. I don't like it either. It is a necessary tool, and for most people, you don't need to be posting at all. And actually, and you can go on my LinkedIn post, but one of the things that makes me really frustrated is I'll often see job seekers responding to a writer, I can't remember the name right now, coined the term conflict entrepreneur, but people, get things from engagement, either money or business. And so you'll see sometimes big career coaches who have a lot of audiences will post emotionally charged posts so that job seekers will say things like, oh, I can't stand to be ghosted. This just happened. Well, when you do that, the first thing I see on your activity is complaining. So I want to be really careful what people put on their activity. And most of you who said you were individual contributors who aren't in marketing, you don't need to be posting on LinkedIn. The magic of LinkedIn is in the network, but it is, most people will see very little benefit from actually posting on LinkedIn, especially if they're not doing it strategically. Okay.
Can I
So-
ask a question there? Kara?
Mhm.
Yeah, so I've heard from several people that, hey, if you need to post on LinkedIn to ratchet up your views and so that headhunters and HR people will see you as somebody who is active and involved and, the usual stuff I've heard. Do you think that's valid or invalid, would you say, based on what I just heard?
It depends on your industry. I can tell you this. I've talked to a lot of people who were influencers and promoted on LinkedIn for all of their posting who were still long-term unemployed.
Okay, thank you.
That's your job, is social media. Companies are looking at your background and experience. And I like to tell people this because I think it gives people a lot of comfort. That they don't need to make social media their job. Should you be an expert in your field? Yes. And we're going to talk about how you support that. But whether or not you can write or use AI to write media posts is not necessarily what someone's looking for in a software engineer. So I hope that answered your question. And I may be different than a lot of job coaches in this because my approach is extremely practical for people who needed jobs yesterday and what I see works in the market. But that is my sense of it. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who have had that they're influencers and they're not employed. They are subject matter experts
Thank
online
you.
and very smart, but it just didn't help them get employed in their field. Okay. So now looking at Steve's experience. So you can see he's one of the examples of like these short-term roles, software engineer. We've got Leap to Success in there, which is a great program for gaps. But there's all kinds of choices that we can make in how we show this program and how we show our whole work history. And how are you going to determine that? Well, it's going to be your goal. When I talk to Steve has been a software engineer for a long time. He's been very successful in contract roles. He is targeting contract roles because of his current life position and where he sees the market going, which is really smart because we talk a lot for those of us who are senior and in a challenging market, age discrimination. Well, one of the things about age discrimination is we're expensive on health insurance. And contracting, and when there's a challenging economy, contract roles go up. I've got a lot of clients in contract roles right now. It's super common. And people get hired from contract to permanent, which Steve has in his career, but it's not showing up. So I have to scroll down a really long time and click show 11 other experiences to see Steve's AMD experience, and notice he's got Dell experience, but you can't see because these were small contracting companies. So it is hard to follow his actual timeline. So when I talk about these are the building blocks that make up, and this is the thing that recruiters and anybody who looks at your profile, we don't read. That takes too long. And when you're moving really fast, we're not reading this, we're scanning it. And most people won't click and read the details, especially recruiters who are moving very, very quickly. So let's go down and look at the difference. Can you all see that? So one of the biases for those of us who are older is that we don't keep up with technology. Not a big deal, but by switching out his background to something that matches his photo, it's just, you see the different visual picture as opposed to the LinkedIn kind of generic. It's just showing Steve is current. He knows how to use the technology. He also, his URL is branded. That is an important piece too. If you have one of those LinkedIn URLs, the website that you get to get to your LinkedIn profile, if it has a string of numbers and letters behind it, Google how do I customize my LinkedIn profile, because that will show that you're current. So we talked about Steve having experience in large enterprise SaaS companies, federal contractors, semiconductor. These are big global companies. They say something. And then when I talk to Steve, he is just, he's the kind of guy that you want to put in some really challenging situations, because he'll figure out ways to solve the problem and patch things together with all the different tools and technologies he's used. He's somebody who has stayed up to date with technology all the way through from the beginning of his career to the present. He is an ideal fit for contract roles. And for those of you who have the I'll take anything strategy, if you've been in contract roles and in a market like the one we're in today, contract roles are in demand. So somebody who has already done contract roles can prove that they've done it. They are going to be competitive versus the person who was recently laid off from Dell and never had been there for 20 years and hadn't done a contract role in their lives. So Steve has already proven that he can be very successful in contract roles. This may not be the final headline that we use for Steve. He and I are going to talk some more, but are we getting closer, Steve?
Yeah, definitely makes more sense.
Okay, but do you see how if I don't know anything about software engineering, I can go as Kara, his neighbor, and be like, oh, wait, I know people who work in these businesses, these large companies. I can probably introduce him, and I don't know if it's a match, but it's a person he can talk to. The other thing, Steve, his profile experience was not up to date. So how the difference and how I'm laying out his experience. You've got a bunch of different job titles. I'm using market, common in the market, and a variety so that we can see we have some variation in keywords so that robots can find him as well as humans. I cobbled this together, so it might not look so neat, but you can get the general idea. So he's been full-time at Dell. He was recently laid off. This is a common hack that I will use for people who have been laid off in the last 6 months. The benefit of this is it explains the gap clearly. So I'm putting this in the body of the experience section. Everybody knows that Dell lays off constantly and people have been laying off. But what it does is he can keep the role current so it shows up here. And the other thing that I decided that he might be a good candidate to keep the open to work banner on is because he's looking for contract roles. And not all the contracting companies pay for the expensive LinkedIn recruiter. So that makes it really easy for him to find compared to, and then you add in that he's saying he's been in contract roles and his career supports contract roles. Because Meta and Dell are big logos, I use the logos, but then I specify that these were contracts with the contracting company. You can see here, these are contracting companies. They don't even have a LinkedIn profile, and that happens a lot with contracting companies. So whenever you can show that you were contracted, again, you want to be honest, and that's why it's right in the headline that you were a contracted worker, and it should say contract instead of full-time. I was running out of time, but here it does here. And the other cool picture this paints in headlines is that Steve was a contracted employer at Dell, and he was hired at Dell just in within a couple of months. That is the equivalent of a promotion. If you are hired from contract to hire, people like to see that. Recruiters, hiring managers like to see that because it is very much like a promotion. They liked you enough to bring you on for full time, and he was there for 3 years. So big difference in his profile. And then I grouped together his contract roles. We talked about that weird period in the Great Recession, but grouped them together so we could get his AMD on the first page. The other thing I did is move his Leap to Success down into volunteer because it overlapped his other contract roles, and he could add Leap to Success as and also the specific work for the types of nonprofits or companies he did at Leap to Success to cover this period, which is contract and volunteer. But what I didn't want to do was kick his AMD experience, which is a long tenure, down to the second page where no one would see it. So it's very specific to Steve's career and Steve's goal. What do you think about that, Steve?
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot.
But do you see the different message that he's sending in headlines? Anyone else want to comment on that?
That's an amazing transformation. Just personally, I'm like very impressed looking at it, and especially putting the big companies, and before you really couldn't see it at all, although he had a ton of experience. I don't know. You look super impressive, Steve. It's great.
He is. I'm talking to him and I'm like, oh my goodness, like he has skills.
Yeah.
He's exactly the kind of person that people like to pick up for contracts and in those like big companies with those legacy systems. So yes, that's the idea. But
Good.
no, he started with a target, right? Here's Steve's target. His career history supports it. And do we have a few more minutes to start the conversation about Tina? I'm looking at time. Do we have
Certainly,
Yeah,
yes,
yes.
please.
Take the time you need.
Okay.
This
So-
is well worth it.
Okay, great. And I understand if people have to drop off, and you can also, like I said, check in with Tina. Link, I'm sure she dropped her profile in the chat. So what I started to do with Tina is we're going to go through the same process, but I want to show you all how an alternate way to use AI that is helpful and not hurtful, that can get you closer to this process that we did with Steve. So Tina has a lot of the same problems. She has part-time and volunteer roles. She has career detours when really her goal is to be a technical project manager inside of a global corporation. That's where she shines, and that's where her experience is. But again, she's got the same problems. The same challenges is that her recent work experience is not showing it. She's got some career breaks in there, family caretaking, like that first example I showed you. So how are we going to fix this? There's lots of ways to do this, but I want to show you, for those of you who are using ChatGPT and may not be getting results out of it, I want to show you a process that I use. Okay, so I asked Tina and she did her homework. I'm so grateful for that. Thank you. She's on top of it. You can tell she's a project manager. So I asked her to give me some job descriptions. I showed her how to source job descriptions, and a lot of that is going into, I use Google Jobs tool because it aggregates from across the internet. Google's using a lot of AI now. It's a great way to source potential jobs, and then you can jump back in, verify them on LinkedIn, on the company website. There are lots of job boards. I don't know that Google aggregates everything, but it has a lot, and it will geolocate near you. So Tina did exactly what I asked her to do and found job descriptions for her target role, which we discussed was as project manager inside large, also semiconductor type companies. What else was it, Tina? Software applications, enterprise
Yeah,
SaaS.
software.
Yeah.
Software application.
Okay, so she found job descriptions for me. And I said, okay, I asked ChatGPT, what are potential job titles in Austin for a project manager that matches the following descriptions? I copied and pasted the job descriptions. I put no personal client information into ChatGPT. I know some people do, I don't. I don't put personal information in it at all. I don't put people's resumes in it. Shouldn't be writing your resumes anyway. It does a terrible job. But I want to get ideas for her headlines and for her overall career story. So we put in, thanks to Tina, who copied and pasted the text of 2 or 3 job descriptions. We put that in here, and here's what it tells us. Let's see. So what did we get past it? Okay, Cisco, we're big companies. That's another big company. Delivery lead. Let's keep going. Tina did her homework. Here we are. Okay. So can y'all see this?
Yes.
Okay. Here's the closest match with the job titles. Here you go, Tina. Which of these look appropriate?
Agile project manager.
Okay, so here we go. Agile project manager, IT project manager. I'm looking for all the variations of current job titles that would be a fit for her in Austin. These are keywords that are very practical, enterprise applications, and she and I will craft a title together when we work on her profile after this. And it also gives us some other titles. So now you've used ChatGPT to process those job descriptions that you know were matched because Tina went through the tedious exercise of reading through them and knowing that she was a fit for them. Here's all the potential job titles we can use. And then, so it says Austin specific reality check. I didn't ask it for this, it gave me this, but from my own knowledge, I would probably avoid business software applications because I haven't seen that title around here used much. Now, it's giving different titles to search on. Delivery lead is one that I looked at, Tina. Now, what I did is I had Tina give me her results from this free High Five test. I love StrengthsFinder, but for people who are unemployed, High Five is free and it does similar things. And I say, what are differentiators for a person in this position? So it's taking all that data we just have, who has these High Five strengths. And this is where we won't have time today, but Tina and I will talk through this. But it'll start telling you, and from what I know about Tina, this is her to a T. Delivery momentum under pressure. It starts writing taglines for you. It starts anticipating different interview questions and ways that you can answer it, or it's not anticipating the interview questions, but it gives you key things to pay attention to that you can go, oh, I have a story for this. I'm guessing, Tina, this probably describes you pretty well.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
So again, we started with market language in the form of the job descriptions that Tina found. So I wanted to share that with you because you can do a lot of this legwork ahead of time. And then Tina and I will get together and use this information to rebuild her headlines so you can see the before and after for her. Thank you for letting me share that because I think it's a really useful exercise. Are there any?
Yeah, Paige has her hand up. She has a question.
Hi, thanks for doing this. Very helpful. My question is more on the back end. I need to go into my LinkedIn and do various changes, and I don't know if I'm going to do it all in one time or bits and pieces. And I don't want to give the people reading or potentially see these changes over and over again. So how do I just maybe turn things off for a little bit and then turn it back on once it's ready?
There's a setting in your privacy settings that is under visibility. So if privacy settings and look at visibility, it says share job changes. Make sure that's off. Most
Okay.
by now. The other thing is this is an iterative process. So some of you may choose a target like Steve at contract roles, and he may open himself up to contract work. He could get an offer for or an interview for a full-time position. That's not going to stop him, right? If somebody sees his skills and needs it. So yeah, you can turn that off. I do everything. I mock it up in a Word doc first, and I look at how it looks overall, and
Okay.
then make my changes.
Got it. Thank you.
Kara, I have a question. I have two questions. So I don't pay for LinkedIn, but people who do pay for it, I mean, if I were looking for a job, I certainly would, but have told me that one of the perks is that you're able to get background pictures from LinkedIn, from their database, and that you can put in the job title that you're looking for and and choose from backgrounds that LinkedIn has provided that support your job title, which is where a lot of people have gotten, say, project management backgrounds. And that because your LinkedIn is your way to market yourself that that your background picture should go along with whatever your job title is or your career field or whatever. So I'd like you to speak to that. And then the other thing is we had a speaker who was talking in part about the LinkedIn algorithm, and he said that he gave us a little formula, which was a 3-2-1 formula, and he said that if you every week will comment on 3 postings and repost with a comment 2 postings a week and make 1 original posting each week. She's smiling and nodding. That will add to the LinkedIn algorithm and improve your chances of moving to the top of the whatever referral search.
And they've all gotten jobs. So I don't do it, and I have a business. That's a lot to keep up with. There are other things that you can do that help the algorithms. One is having a fully filled out profile that shows you as an expert in your field, like where, yeah, Barry is confirming that it hasn't helped him. There's all these games that people play with the LinkedIn algorithms. LinkedIn's constantly changing its algorithms.
Yeah.
And, recruiters are looking for one thing, and that they're looking to see that you're a match for the position that they have open. That's it. And if you have a lot of connections, you are relevant in your field, you have the companies that they're looking for. Now, for some of you who are like, I don't work for big companies, this has been an issue for me, and I'm going to be presenting, I think, at CNG on the 19th, where we're going to look at people with some nonlinear backgrounds like I do, who haven't worked for big companies, and what do we do with them? But they're just looking for confirmation that you're a professional. You know, most people are not posting, and there's a lot of AI slop out there. Reminds me of, you know, if you've ever taken an online course and your professor makes you comment on somebody else's, I mean, that feels very performative, and it usually isn't adding anything. So I'm a big fan of it. If it's not adding, don't do it. Also, I have a great, I'm looking in my resources here. I'm putting in the strengths assessments. There's the free, I love Strengths Finder, but High Five is free. And then I also have a resource for a great podcast. It's like a 10-minute podcast where the person, I thought I had it. Well, I can't find that one. Oh yeah, I do. Is LinkedIn Premium worth it? So here you go. I love resources. I'm a collector of them. So you guys can listen to that to see if it makes sense for you to pay for LinkedIn Premium. Any other questions?
I have a question about the explaining gaps, and then the point that was raised that I hadn't thought of that really scares me about, I guess it was with ageism, if people are older that they'll have higher healthcare costs. But what if your gap, and a very long gap, was health?
Imagine.
I work with a lot of people coming back to work for all different reasons. But if you have, I have a really good friend right now going through cancer, and she's been out of the workplace, and I'm helping her rebuild her tools. If you you have I don't want to suggest anything that's going to suggest bias. So
and stating health.
I was family caretaking, took 2 years off for caretaking family. They don't have to know why. You can also add that you've done upskilling or whatever. If that gap is between an otherwise linear career, it can be more complicated if your career changing afterwards. But
yep.
And that may be like the nonlinear session I'm going to be doing in a couple of weeks may be helpful for you.
CNG. I've seen them on the
for that.
I'm sorry.
There is a Zoom option,
Okay.
in person and on Zoom.
Can I comment on that gap issue?
Sure.
So I have a significant gap in my resume for the first time in my current job search, and I didn't really think that much of it, but I was convinced to add something. I just have personal sabbatical on my resume now, and I spoke with a sort of a career coach who said that some number of hiring managers or whoever they are just want to know that if you have a gap on your resume, you weren't in prison during that time.
I mean, like I said, if somebody cuts me off in traffic, well, I do this because I'm like, oh, maybe their dog died, because I'm one of those people who can cut people off if I'm distracted. But most people don't go, oh, maybe their dog died and they're having a bad day. They start yelling about what terrible people they are. So that's what happens. You know, we're under threat. Hiring managers are under threat. So if you don't give them context, that's why, I showed you that example where the person had 2 years family caretaking and then volunteer. It's got to make sense. It's got to be an explanation that makes sense. They'll move on pretty quickly, especially if the rest of your career is a match. Now, the challenges with some of the stay-at-home moms getting divorced who've been out of the workforce for 20 years, that those are different kinds of job searches. But and they can overcome those too. There are different ways to show volunteer work and other things. So but yes, it depends on your career before and after. That's why there's no one size fits all approach. Everybody is different. Everybody's career is different. Everybody's industry is different. The competition that you're working with today in Austin is different than it was 5 years ago. All of these things have to be considered in a headline strategy in your overall job search. And if that's one message I can get across today, it's that. It's get real targeted and then see how you are up against your competition, because you'll never get it took me a long time. I did get a role. It didn't last. It wasn't a fit, but I did get a role inside of a school, inside of a university, to do career coaching. But I had to really do some storytelling because I'd been freelancing for several years, and they're going to hire me back as a contractor because it wasn't a fit. And I guess I am fit that bias of I work better as a freelancer than I do as an inside employee. So there's reasons that the biases exist. They're not always true, obviously, but I'm the kind of person who wants to know what they are. I want to know your career and know how to anticipate and address them and give you your best option. So I am going to put my Calendly link here. I do have a free group review on Monday mornings at 8 o'clock. I don't get too many people taking me up on it yet. I haven't advertised it a lot. Most of my business, I'm lucky that it's been word of mouth, but I am adding some group trainings and things, because if I could do group training full time, and I would do it, because this information is really helpful to people. So thank you to our volunteers, and Tina and Steve, I will get with you and we'll meet up again and make these changes to your profile.
Thank you,
Thank
Kara.
you. You were fabulous. This
Kara.
hands-on interactive stuff is just perfect, and hardly anybody does it. So this was really, really good. I loved the transformation that you did on our two volunteers. That was perfect. The befores and afters were effective, and we love you always, but this was particularly useful. And thank you so much for your time.
I'm glad it helped. It's not you guys. This stuff's hard, so you're in the right place.